Ever watch a motivational speaker scream about powering through limits, only to feel completely inadequate when your stress actually hits? It's a common reaction. Books like The Architecture of Mental Fortitude lay out 10 distinct traits that highly resilient people share, but there is a wide gap between how these traits are marketed and what they actually require. Pop culture sells mental strength as endless productivity and zero tears. In reality, building these traits demands a high cognitive load and strictly enforced boundaries. Building these traits functions like a structural framework, requiring a deliberate self-audit of your daily habits. Approaching fortitude as a sheer act of willpower often depletes your energy reserves faster than you can replenish them. Treating it instead as a resource-intensive habit allows for growth that is sustainable and objective. The problem is, you only have so much time and mental energy to spend on self-improvement on any given day. If you try to adopt all 10 of these mental habits simultaneously, you are on a fast track to exhaustion, especially if you're already nearing your limit. So let's treat your cognitive energy as a finite currency and look at these traits through an ROI analysis. We will evaluate them based on two metrics: the cost, meaning the daily friction required to implement them, and the output, the tangible, real-world resilience you actually get back. Before you commit to rewiring your mindset, you need to know if the energy you're spending is going to yield a positive return in your actual life. This chart maps out the utility of these psychological habits. The x-axis tracks the cognitive effort required to maintain the habit, and the y-axis shows the return on investment, the actual impact on your resilience. Let's look at the first cluster, boundary setting. This group lands firmly in the high-effort, high-impact quadrant. The required input is steep. It means actively saying no to peers and restructuring your schedule to protect your time. The outcome is highly valuable. You successfully insulate deep work blocks and prevent chronic overcommitment. But there is a distinct trade-off. Enforcing these limits carries a sharp short-term social cost, and it can feel intensely isolating for people-pleasers. For pragmatic optimizers, boundaries yield significant returns, but you have to spend emotional capital upfront to withstand that initial social friction. Other traits shift the focus away from external management and require heavy internal emotional regulation. Take the radical acceptance and stoic traits. The input demands that you pause before reacting to a crisis, explicitly abandoning the illusion that you can control external events. Do this successfully, and the outcome drastically reduces rumination, saving the emotional energy you would normally waste fighting unchangeable facts. However, the trade-off is severe. The practice often feels unnatural and risks crossing into apathy or complete emotional detachment. Radical acceptance is a volatile investment. The resilience it offers is high, but it takes immense daily vigilance to prevent it mutating into mere indifference. Then there is the third cluster, reframing and positivity. This is easily the most heavily marketed aspect of mental strength. Looking at the chart, reframing requires surprisingly moderate effort, but its ROI is highly variable. The input involves actively monitoring your internal monologue and rewriting negative self-talk into neutral, objective data points. When applied correctly, the outcome is highly effective at halting a downward psychological spiral during moments of acute failure. But misapplying this trait leads directly to toxic positivity. You end up ignoring genuine, systemic problems instead of actually fixing them. Reframing only profits cognitive balance when used as a diagnostic tool to assess reality, not as an escape hatch avoiding a broken system. Now that the costs of these habits are clear, your next step is deciding which specific traits match your unique stress profile. This matrix aligns different states of stress with recommended tiers of psychological traits. If you match the burned-out beginner profile, your focus belongs strictly on core foundations, like boundaries and rest routines. The goal here is to establish a stable baseline of energy. To get that, you trade off by temporarily delaying ambitious career goals to focus entirely on recovery. If you're a pragmatic optimizer with energy to spare, you can safely target high-effort advanced cognitive traits, like radical acceptance. Assigning a high-effort cognitive trait to someone already in the middle of acute burnout just adds more cognitive load. It guarantees a crash. Selecting a psychological habit that contradicts your current capacity doesn't just waste your energy, it actively accelerates the burnout you were trying to cure. So stop treating listicles of 10 traits as a mandatory checklist you have to complete by tomorrow morning. Adopting a new mental trait functions like a structural upgrade. It requires intense focus and must be done one piece at a time. Look at your current routine and identify your single weakest load-bearing pillar. Maybe it's a lack of boundaries, or maybe it's crippling rumination. Pick just the one trait from the list that addresses that specific weakness. Willingly pay the cognitive cost to implement it and master it before you even think about the rest of the list. Mental fortitude develops through calculated sequential investments of cognitive energy over time.